All right, we'll continue where we left off on this YouTube's darkest secrets. Jesus, I can't even speak this evening. Um, Again, this is by Nick Crowley. He has some guest voiceovers. Uh, I mean, he has a lot of, a big following, but I never really even had heard of him until I started YouTubing more. And, when I start binge watching a channel, I'll start binge watching the shit out of it. And that goes the same for Nick Crowley. And I like the way he puts together his information, the way he, portrays it. He's a good YouTuber all the way around. So go and show him some love, show him some props. And yeah, let's get into the second part of this. So here we go.
Sworn to never go out to sea again.
Random acts of violence. This entry refers to the numerous clips across YouTube depicting, well, random acts of violence.
Oh my God.
The most well-known example of this came back in 2017 when a video would be shared across the site showing a jogger pushing a woman in front of a bus. Luckily, the woman narrowly escaped death, as the bus swerved at the last possible second. But the video remains as a reminder of how cruel people can be, as the shove was done completely at random, and the man went out of his way to try and essentially end this woman's life, for no apparent reason. The popularity of the video led to a worldwide search to try and determine the identity of this man, but frustratingly, he has remained anonymous. Though this is by far the most popular example, it's sadly far from the only example. Like this video, which shows a woman in her mid-50s planting flowers along a sidewalk in Seattle. And though her actions were incredibly innocent and wholesome, a young man walking by would approach her from behind and kick her directly in the face, leaving the woman badly injured. This man was thankfully caught and identified as 19-year-old Isaiah Clay Lewis, who had a history of domestic abuse as well as other assault charges.
I know the judicial system isn't very caught up on mental health issues and how to take the two apart. I mean, a good quote, even though I hate to quote this piece of shit, but John Wayne Gacy on Dahmer saying, I never met the man, but if he doesn't qualify, for the insanity plea, he's like, then I fear the man who would. And that's absolutely right. Dahmer had a fucked up, mental disability doing all this shit. So did John Wayne Gacy. So did all these serial killers. If this shit continues with these punks doing this shit, they're going to keep on escalating more and more and more. So I'm glad that he fucking got caught. But what's going to happen is, the sad part, she's going to have PTSD. I mean, there's just no way around it. Planting flowers or doing something around your community for the good, and somebody does that shit. No, fuck him.
Thankfully, it appears that he is still in prison, awaiting his trial. Man dies standing up. This strange video was shot at a mall in Kazakhstan, where a group of people crowd around a man who appears completely frozen in an upright position. For the video's runtime, the crowd never successfully gets the man to move, and chillingly, when the medics went to pick him up, his body was completely stiff. The title of this video suggests that this man had somehow died standing up. And looking at the video, it's easy to see why, as not once does the man move. But in reality, something even stranger happened. It was said that the man had spent the entire day binge drinking when his body suffered an incredibly rare symptom called alcoholic stupor. This is the final stage of alcohol intoxication before coma, and occurs when the blood alcohol content level is nearly 0.40. For reference, you're considered drunk when you're at 0.08.
Man, I am so happy that I got it out of my system at such a young age. Like I said, I had been buying alcohol since the age of 18 years old. I'm such a big ass dude that nobody ever really bothered carding me. So by the time I turned 21, I remember being out and sitting in this VIP room, just chilling by myself, and had a Johnny Walker Blue and a Michelob Ultra. And I see this guy. I look down, and he's just making himself look like a fool, but at the same time, he was happy. So it was like, he was celebrating like perhaps his, 21st birthday or something. But the people around him were not pleased. They're all looking back at him like, mean mugging the shit out of him. And then I stopped for a second and I said, I've never gotten into fights, fist fights when I was drunk. Gotten into arguments with friends, and then that shit's water under the bridge because you're drunk, and that's always the excuse. But I'm glad I got out of my system at such a young age that I haven't drank in 20 some years. And no, I'm not like, an Alcoholic Anonymous, like, oh, I've been this many years sober. If I feel like going out to have a beer, I could go out to have a beer. It's just, I don't want to. It's not my thing right now. So, and I doubt it's going to change.
This causes the person to lose motor function and stops them from responding to any stimuli around them.
Oh, one more thing too. This is the funniest story I ever had. There was this, while I was going to college, I was working at the Home Depot, and there was this girl outside that used to run, one of those carts one of those big trucks that they serve you food out of, this and that. And I swear she looked just like Jennifer Love Hewitt, with the exception of, having much smaller chest than Jennifer Love Hewitt did. But I mean, she was gorgeous. And so, just like I did with the Russian girl who fell in love with me, I fucked up with her too. We went out one night, and she kept on asking me if a fellow coworker was going to come because she invited him, but he never got back to us or anything. And I'm like, she probably has odds for him, so fuck it. I'm not going to waste my time on this. I'm like, hey, my friend Christina's having a party. Do you want to stop by, or do you want to wait for her? And I was sarcastic, for Josh to get back to you. And I could tell the expression on her face that, she was like put off by that. She's like, no, we could go to your friend's party. If Josh hasn't called back yet or whatever, fuck it. I don't care. Well, the only time in my life that I've ever blacked out from being drunk is the next thing I remember, because we were sitting at the end of the table on the floor because everybody else was on the couch. The end of the table had a recliner. People to our right were on the floor, and her and I were on the floor. And the next thing I know, and I've never had this happen to me before, and I'm all about this girl, believe me, but the next thing I remember is snapping out of it, and like my friend Christina and all of them are in the kitchen, and she's on top of me, dry humping me, and I'm like, whoa, like, where the fuck did this come from? Like, kissing me, making out with me. I'm like, I was not expecting this whatsoever. What the hell did I do or say? Like, I had to have said something and then made everybody uncomfortable to have gotten on the couch with her like that. And of course, there was no, she didn't undress or anything, but, I felt bad for, I told my friend Christina, I was like, I'm so sorry. I was like, that's the first time I ever blacked out. And she's like, well, just be careful, going home. And then I was like, no, like, I feel completely sober now, but it was just odd. And then, like, a month later, she asked me if we could get a place together. And just like I was saying the other night, every little decision that you make is going to have such an interesting outcome. And if I would have said yes, what if her and I could have gotten married? What if her and I could have had a child together? What if her and I could have, done so many things together just by moving in with one another? And me, like a dummy, I'm like, no. And it was because I was thinking the opposite, because I don't, want her to bring home guys, having to listen to, them getting down. I don't want to. But again, it was just me being prejudiced, passing judgment on before we even got to that point. So, yeah, I've had a lot of fucking decisions where I made that I thought were good decisions, and believe me, it's backfired on me. And for the rest of my life, I'm going to live in remorse for not necessarily for that, but for a lot of things that have happened in my friends that involve, death and things of that nature. So, alcohol makes you do stupid shit. So always be careful while drinking and consuming, because that's just, yeah.
In this instance, it led to the man essentially freezing in place, apparently for well over an hour. Luckily, medics were able to pump the man's stomach, and he would go on to make a full recovery. Though this video remains chilling nonetheless, as there's something so unnatural and off-putting about a man stuck in time, likely one drink away from death. Rabies in humans. When we think of rabies, we typically think about wild animals who foam at the mouth when they contract it. But sadly, humans are susceptible to this terrifying disease as well. It first causes flu-like symptoms that quickly progress into agitation, confusion, and aggression. As things progress, humans begin to hallucinate and suffer from hydrophobia, or the fear of water. This disease is devastating, and virtually 100% fatal after the first symptoms emerge. Luckily, we now have an effective vaccine against rabies, but videos exist of a time before a preventative treatment was available that show these haunting effects on camera. Some of the most disturbing include this child who had developed a fear of water, which likely led him to pass away due to dehydration. Flocka videos. Flocka is a synthetic drug that attempts to stimulate the effects of cocaine and methamphetamine for a much cheaper price tag. But like many drugs, they can often take over a person and make them completely unlike themselves. Flocka is commonly referred to as the zombie drug, and the videos here on YouTube show us exactly why many call it that, as it makes these people look and act like legitimate zombies. These videos are extremely prevalent across the site, and they all serve as a warning to stay far away from Flocka. Russian dog experiments. Ah yes, this one is old but gold. This refers to a video created by Soviet scientist Sergei Brokonenko, a man best known for creating one of the first heart and lung machines. And though this invention has revolutionized the world of medicine, its roots are very dark, as during the testing phase, Sergei would use dogs to test his machine. The video shows the head of a dog, detached from its body, but with Sergei's machine, it's still alive. It's extremely disturbing, but experiments like this were very common back in the 50s and 60s, as on another occasion, scientists attached the head of a dog onto another healthy dog. The result was this: a dog with two heads, both of which were actually functioning. The dog would go on to survive for 38 days before it eventually perished. Making a real PC gaming chair. At first glance, this video appears relatively normal, as it portrays exactly what the title says. It shows a group visiting a junkyard and finding an old car, in which they remove the seat from and turn it into a gaming chair. However, looking a bit closer, you start to realize that the video is far stranger than it seems, as when looking at the car's windshield, you can notice several bullet holes, a few of which enter the vehicle directly in front of the seat they chose. And to make it stranger, when the cameraman is showing off the seat, you can see what appears to be long, dried blood in the back, making it likely that someone had been shot and maybe even killed, whilst sitting in that very seat. And strangest of all, no one in the video reacts to it at all, just adding to the unsettling atmosphere of the clip. This was the original name of a channel run by a young man who seemed to have an obsession with a number of girls. He would find girls that caught his eye. Some were contestants on Wheel of Fortune, while others were childhood stars or even just random internet users. And then he would obsessively post about them on one of his many channels, as he's known to have at least 10 accounts. The videos are incredibly creepy, as this person simply whispers the name of these young women over and over again. In one particular clip, he even doxed one of the girls in the description, making it clear that he had been actively trying to locate her behind the scenes. BHFS. Spanning a total of just 8 seconds, this video showcases what is likely the most devastating moment of a man's life.
Oh my god, do you know how much that cost?
It shows a cluster of dead cattle and a man, who is lying with them in the background, thrashing and screaming at the top of his lungs. No words were spoken, and no context is given to the video, but it's not hard to assume that the man wailing in the back was the owner of these animals, and their sudden death had broken him. Those cattle were clearly everything to him, and were likely one of the main things supporting him and potentially his family. Yet, in an instant, they were gone, for reasons unknown. I wish we knew more about what was really happening here, as the clip seems so reminiscent of the Lake Niles incident, discussed previously on this channel. But ultimately, the man's reaction tells us all we really need to know about how devastating this video really is. El Chapo's son. El Chapo's son refers to a video posted by the New York Times, which includes body cam footage of the moment they discovered Ovidio Guzman Lopez, the son of Joaquin Guzman, better known as El Chapo. Lopez himself is the cartel leader, and his capture was said to be a long time coming given the countless crimes he had committed. However, a few days after his arrest, the Mexican government would order his release when a Sinaloa cartel took over much of the city. In the days after this video was filmed, virtually every officer shown in the footage would be hunted down and killed by the cartel they had been trying to stop. Pastor bit by snake.
You know, I don't know why my race has become so violent in doing what they do. I mean, I've seen stories where, you know, these people will hang beheaded people upside down off of bridges just to send a message. And, you know, I've never understood something like that just because I don't think in that mindset. But I mean, to do that to your fellow, you know, your fellow countrymen, I mean, that's just, I mean, it goes to show any culture is violent, but I just never realized that my culture, and I'm not big into my culture, you know, I don't have, you know, Mexican art or things like that hanging about. I just, you know, you embrace what you are, and it's just sad to see, like, you know, such a violent group of people.
Snake. Pastor bit by snake refers to a video depicting a ritual performed by Cody Coots, a pastor at the Full Gospel Tabernacle Church, located in Kentucky, is known in particular for their rituals, which involve drinking poisons and handling venomous snakes to prove your devotion to God. Yeah. In the video, we see Cody delivering a sermon in 2018 with confidence, before the snake abruptly bites him. He continues to deliver the sermon, but quickly becomes so weak that he had to be carried out of the church and rushed to the hospital. He would survive, but only after 10 days in the ICU, meaning that this bite left him within inches of his life. But perhaps the strangest part of all of this is the fact that his father, Jamie Coots, had sustained a venomous snake bite during this exact type of ritual back in 2013. Like his son, Jamie had been holding the snake too closely, prompting it to sink its venomous fangs into him. However, unlike his son, Jamie would not survive the ordeal, as he passed away soon after. Hiccup Girl. Hiccup Girl refers to Jennifer Mee, a Floridian woman who became known in 2007 for her seemingly never-ending case of hiccups. In the video, she gives information on trying to stop it, how long it's been going on, etc.
Abdominal pains, throat pains, back pains. It's unbelievable.
The video itself is harmless. It's what happens after that gives it a hindsight case of sinister energy. In June 2007, Mee's popularity waned after she successfully cured her hiccups, but she gained more attention after it was reported that she ran away from home. From there, she reportedly began to rob people with partners Lamont Newton and LaRon Rayford. This continued until 2010, in which she lured a man with the help of Newton and Rayford into a house before killing him. They apparently got $50 from the robbery and were soon after arrested. Mee's attorney attempted to defend her by saying she had schizophrenia, evidencing her hiccups as a side effect, but this did not work, and she currently serves life in prison without parole. Today, watching this video, it's disturbing to see what such an innocent seeming figure became over the course of 3 years. To go from hiccuping on the news to life without parole on the news.
Hello everybody, it's me, Wendigoon, and today I am so happy that the Nick Crowley invited me to talk to you all about level 4 of this iceberg. Now, I have been a fan of Nick Crowley forever. In fact, he was one of the main inspirations for me to start a channel, so for me to get to a point where I, a person who's never even seen an iceberg in real life, gets invited onto his channel is a really big deal, and Nick, it really does mean a lot. But enough with the sappy stuff. I know you all want to continue on with this iceberg, so I am happy to take you on the journey through Tier 4, the body. Heaven's Gate Exit Statements. Heaven's Gate Exit Statements refers to a 2-hour-long video where members of the infamous Heaven's Gate cult gave their final statements before the group's mass suicide in March of 1997. Heaven's Gate believed a variety of things, but in the 90s they became convinced that their bodies were merely containers or vehicles for consciousness, and that upon death they would be transferred into what they considered their next level bodies.
If you use the analogy of a car, people may keep their cars for a long time before they finally wear out and they clunk out. Or some people, they say, well, here's a newer model, it's much nicer, and this one, doesn't quite perform the way I could, and I'd like to move into this new car. So get rid of the old one, get a new one. I mean, that's about all we're talking about. It's not a big deal.
Shortly after the filming, every member shown in this video would take their own life by consuming a poisonous blend of applesauce or pudding before tying plastic bags to their heads and passing away in their beds. Our next entry is Albert Soap. Albert Soap was a 22-year-old YouTuber who posted a vast array of content across the site, but his most recent endeavor was producing and starring in fictional videos about Vikings. The videos portray a unique blend of comedy and genuinely emotional moments, and featured an extremely high production value. But sadly, when shooting for the latest installment of his Viking series, tragedy would strike. In the summer of 2021, Albert would climb a tall cliff in the Italian Alps in order to get the perfect scenic shot for his video. Near the top, Albert would start to lose his footing before eventually plummeting 656 feet to the ground below, killing him instantly. It is also worth noting that some have claimed Albert actually recorded his fall, with a few videos being found on YouTube claiming to show his final moments. But to this point, I don't think any of these have been confirmed, and out of respect, they won't be shown here. What's very interesting about this to me is that this isn't the only situation of a YouTuber potentially recording their own death. And whenever I hear about a case like this, it's incredibly haunting to go back and watch everything that led up to it. And it's like whenever you're watching that person in those videos from the past, you know the eventual end that their story is going to lead to before the person in the video does, and there's something so temporally haunting about that, and it's absolutely a tragedy. She's Still Sleeping. She's Still Sleeping refers to a video of the same title in which YouTuber Timothy Birmingham...
And I have a hard time with this one, because he didn't know at the time, and you'll know what I'm talking about, and I'll go ahead and finish my statements after you hear the rest.
Records one of his typical morning vlogs. In it, he jokes that his wife is sleeping in later than usual, even briefly showing the room in which she was lying.
I don't know why.
Hey, it is me, Timothy. She's still sleeping.
While this seems sweet and innocent, the truth behind this video is much more tragic. It turns out that Timothy's wife had actually passed away in her sleep.
Okay, so he had no idea that she had passed away. He just thought, okay, maybe she was tired, and he just filmed her. So why the hell they blurred it out right there, I have no idea. Unless YouTube is really that picky about things that you can't say certain words. I mean, I don't know. But he just filmed her sleeping in. He thought she was sleeping in when she actually had passed away. And he kept the video up as kind of like a memorial to her in his mind, because a lot of his content revolved around both of their lives. And he wanted to keep that, living on. But I didn't know how to feel about it at first, but more and more I think about it, the more and more I think, he wouldn't have done it if he knew, it was harmless. He's not one of those, influencers that'll go out of their way to make some shit up just to, gain, followers and all that stuff. He was just, do funny, goofy things. And, yeah, I mean, I think the whole subject of this just was blown out of proportion.
Hence why she appeared to be sleeping for so long. And when filming, and even after uploading, Timothy hadn't realized that the love of his life was actually dead. It's truly sad to see a nice guy like Timothy go through something like this, especially publicly on YouTube. But it's satisfying to know that he remained in good spirits and continues posting videos to this day. In the subsequent uploads that he had after this, he spoke about how having the YouTube audience and the comments there to help him through this experience, which he vlogged throughout, was a huge help to him, and he felt like this online family helped him cope with the loss of his wife. So while initially a very shocking and, as it should be, tragic situation, there's also a little bit of light in that the fact he was able to share that moment with so many people led to so much care and attention being put towards him, that while not a happy ending, it's definitely better than it could have turned out. Up next is Colleen Ritzer CCTV. The Colleen Ritzer CCTV video refers to the disturbing Philip Kism trial, in which a 14-year-old student of the same name had raped and murdered his 24-year-old teacher, Colleen Ritzer, in a bathroom of the school. Following the incident, he would put her in a garbage can and roll her out of the school into the woods nearby. Everything leading up to and immediately following this murder was chillingly caught on the school CCTV. You can see Colleen happily walking to the bathroom, unaware of the fact that Philip had been following closely behind her. The footage also shows Philip wheeling out the garbage can that he put Colleen's body into as he walks out of frame heading towards the woods. Philip was eventually caught after Ritzard's body was discovered in the nearby forest, and he is currently serving a life sentence with 40 years parole eligibility. Cases like this provide an especially large amount of fear, at least for me, because whenever you're in the public sphere, you feel like that you're safe or at least seen, but as things like this prove, evil can still happen even if under a watchful eye. And while the footage itself and what happened to Colleen Ritzer is absolutely abysmal,
it doesn't even really matter if you're famous or not, or, you're an influencer, quote unquote. If somebody's going to do something, somebody's going to do something. And I can see how you might feel like, okay, since I am in the public eye, in the public domain, things might happen. But, just look at a lot of the random acts of violence. It doesn't go against just, famous people. It goes against whoever's in a vulnerable state. And, she wasn't expecting some shit like that in the school of all places to happen. So it's sickening.
It is good that it was there as a means of putting Philip behind bars for good. After that, we have the infamous RJ the Smoker.
This is awful.
RJ the Smoker was a channel run by a man named RJ who would discuss a variety of smoking-related topics as well as actually smoking and reviewing different types of cigarettes. His first upload, My First Smoking Vid, was posted on January 22nd of 2010 and would be followed by hundreds of other videos throughout the years. RJ seemed to have a passion for tobacco, smoking, and YouTube, but unfortunately this seemed to lead to his downfall. From his first video to October 2015, all seemed well until RJ posted a video titled Important Update.
RJ presented himself to Whips Cross Hospital in East London. X-ray was done, and what followed was a chain of events I could not even dream.
Lead to his downfall. From his first video to October 2015, all seemed well until RJ posted a video titled Important Update.
RJ presented himself to Whips Cross Hospital in East London. X-ray was done, and what followed was a chain of events I could not even dream in my worst nightmares.
In this video, he describes his recent visit to the doctor and his lung cancer diagnosis. Even at this point, RJ looked like a shell of the person smoking in my first smoking vid. But from this moment on, RJ declined even further. During this time, he would shift his focus from solely smoking and begin a series documenting his journey with cancer. He remained active on the channel until November 4th of 2016, when cancer finally claimed his life. This is especially chilling, not only because, as I mentioned earlier, there are several cases of people chronicling their death on YouTube. However, there are not many cases of people chronicling what led to it. And whenever you put the sum of all of it together, it's not only a tragic story, but also a sort of cautionary tale. Up next, we have Chileno Sanchez. Chileno Sanchez refers to the popular Mexican singer, Chileno Sanchez, who made a string of hits during his career in the 80s and early 90s. He's best known for creating narco corridos, a subgenre of Mexican folk music that deals with tales of the drug trade and cartel life. His final performance can be found on YouTube, where he's shown receiving a note on stage. Chileno ponders the contents of the note for a moment, with sweat beading down his forehead before he finally begins to sing. Hours after the concert, his body would be found blindfolded, tied up, and dumped by a river, 2 gunshots in the back of the head. It would later be revealed that the note Chileno was handed had come straight from the cartel, who viewed the songs he sang as a threat to their business. The letter was a threat, telling him that if he chose to perform that night, he would be killed, yet Chileno decided to sing anyway, despite knowing that it would cost him his life. All the ones I've covered up until this point are very sad and tragic stories, and this is also a sad and tragic story, but Chileno was a baller. Imagine that. You have spent all this time talking about the evils and the wickedness of the cartel, and one night they say, if you do this show, we're gonna kill you, and you just start singing. Our next entry
I wish it would have added more context to the story, but what had happened was somebody of a member of the cartel either killed his brother or his sister. So he went back and he killed the man that killed his sibling, and then he fled to the United States. And so he was already kind of with the target on his back, and the more he rose in popularity from his singing, the more and more, you begin to have, people being able to locate you. And so, yeah, it shows the whole video where he's, just up there, and then somebody does come and pass him a note, and it doesn't ever show what the note says, but you can see his expression just vastly change, and he said, F you, and did his thing, and, all because, he wanted revenge, and who wouldn't after somebody would kill your sibling?
Is Diana Loveday. Diana Loveday refers to a former YouTube channel run by a woman of the same name. She would create meal tutorials along with short vlogs documenting her travels.
Welcome to my kitchen, where I really like to cook, but I'm often short on time, so speed is the hook.
The contents of her channel is completely harmless. However, outside of YouTube, Loveday's story is far more sinister. In June of 2014, Loveday filed for divorce from her ex-husband, Greg Mulvihill, after 7 years of marriage. And while she was initially granted full custody of her children, Greg went on to file for joint custody, causing Loveday to launch a string of accusations in order to maintain full control of their kids. By the summer of 2016, the court would rule that Loveday had to share custody with Mulvihill, as well as pay him child support, causing a variety of changes in her life, like selling her condo, among other things. But this is where it takes a strange turn. On the 4th of September of 2016, Greg received a phone call from a number he didn't recognize. The person on the line claimed to be a private investigator who had information on the custody battle that could help in his favor. Warily, Greg and his friend Jason Kovac went to the dirt path of Aberdeen Soledad. There, a man came out and shot Greg in his torso before quickly fleeing the area. Thankfully, Greg would survive the attack as the bullet had missed any vital organs and has gone on to make a full recovery. Soon after, it was discovered that none other than Diana Loveday masterminded the assassination attempt against her ex-husband in order to win back full custody of her children. She and co-conspirator and lover, Weldon McDavid, were found guilty in the court and are currently serving lengthy sentences. So this one, I can have a bit more fun with because no one actually died. So my challenge to you, because the channel's still up, is to find a cooking video and then show your mom and midway through be like, hey, she tried to kill her husband? And then let me, or more specifically, Nick, know in the comments how that goes. Because this isn't my video, so I can sabotage this all I want. So thanks, Nick. Up next, we have Dolly Flesh. Dolly Flesh is the name of a claymation channel, whose work is nothing shy of disturbing. In these videos, scenes of murder and wreck would be graphically depicted, and over time, the content only got more and more disturbed and detailed. But it's not just the artwork that makes this channel so twisted, as it more so has to do with the creator behind it. The man's name is Leighton Allen Lebu, and in May of 2019, he would publish the video, 1 Kid, 3 Hamsters, to the Dolly Flesh channel.
I recently purchased some hamsters from PetSmart. I got 3 of them. I haven't thought of names yet. Not so good with names because I can't keep them. Make up my mind. That's names.
The clip shows Leighton playing with 3 hamsters that had just recently been bought from the pet store. And though nothing of note is shown in the clip, the description provides a haunting clue of what Leighton would do with these innocent animals, as it read, pinned, stabbed, drowned, microwaved. In the following days, a video would emerge across the web of Leighton using those very tactics to torture each hamster, eventually killing them. The video received so much attention that Leighton would actually be arrested for abusing the animals, and he has yet to return to YouTube since. I'm decently familiar with this case because a friend of mine, Turkey Tom, made an excellent video about this, which, shout out to that guy. But what was especially haunting to me about going through the accounts and everything associated with it is it initially started as these very graphic claymation depictions between just 2 random claymation figures, but then he began incorporating himself into fantasies, and then after that he began to wear clay masks, and then we see the violence go from the claymation figures to hamsters, and the entire thing put together is like textbook dangerous serial killer behavior. And considering that he will be out fairly early, or at least in the next few years if I remember correctly, this is a message to everyone: be on the lookout for Leighton Lebu wherever he turns up, because my money is on the fact that he's not going to leave the internet or popularity for good.